Hey guys, so one of the things I like to explore the most is naming stuff in your code and how it impacts readability of the code. So today I'm going to talk about boolean variables. I don't know if it's pronounced boolean or boolean. Boolean pronunciation. Oh, it's boolean. So today we're going to talk about naming your boolean. That sounds so weird. So today we're going to talk about naming boolean variables. So I have an example here ready and you're going to improve it. In the next few minutes, you're going to go through it and try to improve its readability. So currently, it's an if statement here that decides whether to display the product page. We have a user object and a product object. So we do a couple of Boolean checks. So we check the node env property. We check if the user is admin. We also do another check here if the price is greater than 0. And then another check inside it. It's either not free or the product is published. So let's do a quick test of this if statement. So if process.env.nodenv is in development, then we can show it. So if we run the file, we show the product page by default. So let's change the nodenv property to something else like production, and then we run ban on it. So the next check is if the user is an admin. So if you are not in development, then check is the user an admin, then you can show the page. So currently here the user is not an admin, and we have changed the nodenv property. So the first two checks return false. So we go to the third check. So this is another nested check. So is the product.price greater than 0? Yes, it's 3000. And we check if either of these two are true. So is the product free? No, it's not free. So that means this not operator will return true. So because you're doing an OR check here, either of the items should return true for this to pass our check here. Because the product is not free, then you're going to show the product page, even if the product is not published. So again, if we run it with this, then you're going to show the product page. So if you want to break this, then either we set the price to something that is not greater than 0. If we set it to 0, then we're going to hide the product page. Or if we make it free, or if we make it free, so this becomes, or if we make it free, so this becomes true, then we're going to still hide the product page. So the product should not be free, or the product should be published. So it's getting really confusing. So I think if we publish the product, so I think if we publish the product, then we can show the product page. So immediately in my mind, I'm thinking this if statement check here is doing too much, and it's not as readable as you would want it to be. So you have to run the code or try to go through the checks one by one in your head to determine the product of the if statement. So this is not a good if statement. So how can we improve it? So the first thing we'll do is try to simplify the if statement. So what we can do is extract this check here in a variable. So we can extract it to a variable called can show product page, like that. And then we can declare the variable here. So can show product page is equals to the check that we were doing just there. So we have simplified this part here. So but this part here still eludes us. So let's go through simplifying this. So the first step is extracting these long checks like the process.end, like process.env.env and the product check here into separate variables. So we can do something like const is dev equals to, we do the process.env.env check here. So we have extracted this into its own variable. So this can stand on its own, and this check here too can be extracted into its own variable. So the next one you can say, maybe we can call it product is visible, that, and then we do the check for the product here. So we extract this into product is visible. So with that, we have broken down the can show product page. It now looks simpler. So if you just look at this line here, you know that we can only show the product page if you are in dev environment, or the user is an admin, or the product is visible. So we can even go further and break down the product is visible into two separate variables. So we can do something like product is maybe sellable, right? And then we move this check here to our product is sellable variable there. So this looks better than it did before. So I think we can go ahead and make this much simpler than it is. So we could convert this can show product page variable into a function. So let's go ahead. So this now becomes a function that we call it here as a function. So let's try that. So you can just do function can show product page like that. So let's try to recreate this without creating the several variables. So first it checks if the user is in a dev environment. So let's first return false by default. So for the first check, we want to eliminate this variable here. So we remove it, and then here we do a check. So if node n equals to development, then we can show the page. So this is gone. So we check if the user is admin, we can also show the page. So because these two do the same thing, we can add an or check here if user is admin, and then we are left with the product is visible check here. So again, just a simple check. So if the product price is greater than 0, then that means you have a chance to show the product page. So if this product is not free or it's published, then we can show it. So we return true. So let's get rid of our variables here, and then we call this as a function like that. So if we look at our function here, now looks much better. I think this is much cleaner than using the variables or putting all the checks all in one code. So we do checks one by one, and then we return early if the checks pass. And if we just look at the function, it is easy to determine what it does. So one of the hardest things in programming is naming things. Once you figure out how to name things, I think you become a better programmer in the long run. So I hope this helped you think about how you're naming your Boolean variables and kept you from using those complex, ugly Boolean checks. And this video was inspired by a Google blog article here. I'm going to link it in the description. I really liked it. And while I was reading this article, I found it so interesting that people can really think about something as simple as naming Boolean variables. So I hope you enjoyed it. So this is all. See you in the next video.